Quick question. Why do some black people call other black people who think for themselves or who don't think a certain way Uncle Toms? See, to some black people, the term Uncle Tom basically means you're a sellout. You wish you was white. You're ashamed of being black. Blase, blase, blase. All that other good stuff. But the one thing is that they don't tell you otherwise is that some of these people that call people Uncle Tom don't even know the history of Uncle Tom. So the whole Uncle Tom thing, to me, I used to also believe it when I was going through my victimized state before I actually woke up and actually started saying things through a different perspective. And the first thing that happened when I did that, I was called a coon, Uncle Tom, sellout, and I wish I was white. So this whole Uncle Tom was a bootlicker. He did everything the white man did. It's pretty much a big freaking lie. Now the actual real life history of Uncle Tom is completely different than what some informed black people would tell you. The real history of Uncle Tom is actually completely different. Check it out for yourself.
Josiah Henson, aka Uncle Tom. Uncle Tom was born June 15, 1789 in Charles County, Maryland. He was separated from his parents when he was a kid after his father got disciplined for standing up to a slave owner. His father received 100 lashes and got his right ear cut off. One day, at the age of 9, Josiah was caught reading a grammar book by a slave master, Mr. Riley. Mr. Riley beat him so bad, his eyes were swollen and he became unconscious. As he grew older, he became the overseer of the plantation. Josiah was able to work and stack up some money so he can purchase his freedom. But Mr. Riley cheated him out of his money. So after that, he escaped to Canada. And that's where he gave his story. In 1852, author Harriet Beecher Stowe released a powerful fictional book called Uncle Tom's Cabin. Fictional, but it was also based on Josiah's life. This book was so powerful that if you were caught reading it, selling it, or buying it, you would be arrested. Not only could you be arrested, but you could also be sentenced to death. Inside of the book Uncle Tom's Cabin, you will learn about two characters. One, Uncle Tom, and the other, Sambo. Uncle Tom was a good dude. He never snitched. He never beat anybody. And he was the guy, if your sack was empty or your sack was low, he would take cotton out of his sack and put it into yours, just so you wouldn't get beat. Because he was so looked up to, he was so loved, and he was the man holding everything down, they had to put another slave in charge of him, and that slave was Sambo. Sambo's orders was to beat Uncle Tom every night, all the way up until his death. Uncle Tom was beat to death in the fictional book for not giving up the whereabouts of two women slaves that escaped. So let's change that narrative on Uncle Tom. Uncle Tom was a good dude. Sambo is what we should be calling people, not Uncle Tom. You should be proud to be called an Uncle Tom. That name came from the white slave owners who viewed him as a traitor.
Now the history wouldn't be so bad, or some people wouldn't mind being called Uncle Tom if they actually knew the history, instead of actually just saying, calling some black people who think for themselves Uncle Tom just despite of it. See, as soon as I found out the actual history of Uncle Tom, I was like, wow, so this is actually what happened with Uncle Tom. It actually amazes me to have actually read upon this. And not only did it make some things like, seem better, especially since I was going through like going through a like mental crisis, like saying like, hey, like thinking was stuff I'm thinking really better for me, or was it just making things worse? Because it was obviously upsetting my family. But when the more that I actually got in tune with it, and the more I actually read upon it, and the more that I actually looked up sources about it, I realized like some of the things that I've been reading upon is actually truthful. Like the whole slavery, like the whole Republicans own the majority of slaves, or the Democrats were always for the party of black people, which is a bold-faced lie. They are.
When Uncle Tom's Cabin was published in 1852, the anti-slavery novel flew off the shelves. 17 printing presses ran 24 hours a day to keep up with the demand, making it the best-selling novel of the 19th century.
The book struck at our emotions as a nation, and it made us see ourselves. It was our emotional mirror, and it prompted some individuals to rethink how they thought of slavery.
Uncle Tom's Cabin has been cited as a factor leading to the Civil War. When Abraham Lincoln later met the author, Harriet Beecher Stowe, he reportedly said, "So you're the little woman who wrote the book that started this great war." In 1852, the backlash was immediate and powerful.
In the South, the book was banned. And if you were caught selling the book, you were either going to be killed or thrown in prison. There was tremendous fear that this book would make a difference.
It did by portraying Uncle Tom as a dignified, intelligent, God-fearing man. In the South, however, traveling Tom shows became popular, depicting him as a submissive buffoon, happy in his enslaved condition, a stereotype that still exists today. There were also attempts to discredit Harriet Beecher Stowe. The author countered with a key to Uncle Tom's Cabin, an exhaustive bibliography of the real people behind her fictional characters. It included her primary inspiration for Uncle Tom.
Josiah Henson was an individual who demonstrated extraordinary courage. He tried to help other people, especially whites in this country, to understand the reality of slavery.
Josiah Henson's story begins here in Rockville, Maryland, on the outskirts of Washington, D.C. Now, this suburban neighborhood was once a 570-acre plantation, and the house behind me is where the owner lived, a man named Isaac Riley.
Now, history would not be so bad if people actually told the truth.
In this time period, masters wanted to present themselves to be very benevolent, these patriarchs who cared about their people that were enslaved, but the presentation that Henson gives us was that didn't happen for Isaac Riley.
I faithfully served Riley for many years. He was coarse and vulgar in his habits, and unprincipled and cruel in his general deportment.
Henson's autobiography provides many examples of Riley's cruelty, like the day he discovered a book on grammar hidden in 9-year-old Josiah's cap.
When Riley saw the book, of course, he was outraged because it was unheard of that his enslaved people would learn to read and write.
"Pick up that book," he cried, using an awful oath. At last I was obliged to do it, when he beat me across the head and back till my eyes were swollen and I became unconscious.
Despite the harsh treatment, Henson proved to be trustworthy. Eventually elevated to overseeing the plantation, he was able to ease the harsh conditions faced by his fellow slaves. When he was 18, he was even allowed to attend a revival meeting. Although not permitted to enter the church, he heard a life-changing message from preacher John McKinney.
He said, "Jesus Christ, the Son of God, tasted death for every man." It touched my heart, and I cried out, "I wonder if Jesus Christ died for me." Again and again did the preacher reiterate the words, "for every man." Oh, the blessedness and sweetness of feeling that I was loved.
And that meant a lot to him because he knew that God would always be on his side. He would deliver him, and he would decide his plan in life.
The plan included moving his family and 18 others to Isaac Riley's brother's home in Kentucky. When they got to Cincinnati, Henson found his faithfulness tested. Although Ohio was a free state and many free black men encouraged them to stay, he stood firm.
He felt like he had been tasked with this duty and he was going to fulfill it. He had taken care of them and they felt like if he wants us to carry along, we'll go with him.
Henson came to regret that decision. 3 years after their arrival in Kentucky, those who followed him were put up for auction.
Husbands and wives, parents and children were to be separated forever. From that hour, I saw through, hated, and cursed the whole system of slavery. One absorbing purpose occupied my soul: to gain freedom, self-assertion, and deliverance from the cruel caprices and fortunes of dissolute tyrants.
Because of Henson's management skills, he and his family were initially allowed to stay together. 2 years later, however, his time had come. The only option: escape. A major obstacle was the Fugitive Slave Act of 1793, which meant he and his family could be captured even in a free state. So he set his sights on Canada.
It was a 600-mile journey that he would have to make on foot with his wife and 4 children, traveling by night, sleeping by day, super dangerous. But he knows he's got to go to Canada. It's the only place that he can truly be a free man.
His wife made a sling for Josiah to carry the 2 youngest children on his back. With only the North Star as their guide, the Henson family began their journey. After 40 grueling days, they arrived at Lake Erie just across the water from Canada. A sympathetic ship captain offered to take them the rest of the way.
He put his hand on my head and said, "Be a good fellow, won't you?" I felt streams of emotion running down in electric courses from head to foot. "Yes," said I, "I'll use my freedom well."
Henson helped start a black settlement in Ontario, including a multiracial school, almost unheard of at the time. To raise money and awareness, he preached throughout the United States and England, where he was granted a private audience with Queen Victoria. During those years, he risked his life to help a total of 118 slaves reach freedom in Canada.
He's an inspiration for me personally, and I hope for many people as they hear this story, to use our freedom well, right? To use our resources, our time, our money, our energy, our voice, our influence, to use it on behalf of those with less than us.
People don't want to believe free thinkers like me because I choose not to fit a narrative. I know what goes on in Democrat-run states. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. That city has been run by Democrats for years, decades, before I was even born. And St. Louis, Missouri has been a complete cluster ever since I was born. The roads are messed up. There's so many condemned buildings. The train tracks are messed up. There's graffiti all over the place. Even downtown St. Louis is bad. And the gun violence in St. Louis is really bad. It's more violence there than it is in New York City. St. Louis is top 3 when it comes to violent cities. Now people hate it when black people call this out because they saying because they do the whole why you gotta call out black people? Why you gotta call out black people for doing stuff like this? Because because people like me try to educate y'all on trying to be better. Because who doesn't want to see their own people be better instead of just following a narrative, killing each other, not giving a damn about whether or not black people kill other black people, but they only care about when a white person kills a black person. That's the main demographic that needs to stop. The whole you're Uncle Tom for saying stuff like this. Yeah, that should be a compliment to some black people. Because Uncle Tom was apparently beat to death for not telling slave owners what they runaway slaves were. And that's a thing that we should all focus upon. Like you have all these liberal teachers trying change history, trying to teach kids that, yo, the Democrats were always for the party of black people. But when they actually research this thing themselves and start thinking for themselves, they start realizing that these liberal teachers are poisoning their minds, right? And they know they can do it because they don't want the Republicans, or they don't want black people to think for themselves. They want black people to continue voting Democrat. They want black people to keep being victims. They want black people to keep being oppressed. They want black people to just single-handedly vote Democrat each and every year, which we have been doing for the past 40, 50 years. The whole and this is another stereotype I love. The whole if you black, you automatically had to be Democrat. No, the first Republicans were black people, and people want to say the party switched. No, the party did not switch. What happened was the Democrats came up with all these lies and promises in order to get the black vote, and guess what? It happened, and they have had the black vote for over 40, 50 years. Anyway, yeah, man. So let me guys know what y'all think about the history of Uncle Tom. If you guys like what I'm saying, or you like this content, like, subscribe, share this video. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.